so. You are an omniscient, omnipotent God, almighty. But you care about us, and you know what's best for us. Thank you for this time that you've carved for us, and we pray that it should be a blessing. Please, Father, be with us. Give us understanding. Be with me. Help me as I share what you have shared with me and my family. And we pray that there will be clarity, and the Spirit of the Lord will lead us to the truth that you need us to hear this day. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen. Okay. My children asked me not to have a long sermon. I will try. Location, a decision for eternity. A decision for eternity. Let's discuss decisions. I remember, it's okay. It's fine where it is. I have this. I remember when I was in college. And you all here, what a wonderful opportunity that you have Tumsda. You know, you have Tumsda, you have the prayers and the choir, and to keep you warm. College can be cold. Where you go, you meet all kinds of people and all kinds of things, and it's the first time you're making decisions by yourself. Your mom is not there, your dad is not there, and it can be a bit disturbing. But you have this warmth. Jewels, I think those are first years. Use this. This is a wonderful group. So this is the time when we are making decisions. We make decisions. You know, when you are home, they were made for us. Kweli ama si kweli? They were made for us. Yeah? Uliambiwa fanya hii, ulifanya. You complained, but ulifanya. But now moving on, we are making decisions. We are the ones leading and guiding and deciding for ourselves. Isn't that right? It's important to understand that there are certain decisions that are made that are, let me use a difficult word, not difficult, strategic. They are strategic decisions. I use that word to make a point. What does it mean? Oh, and by the way, I'm not a preacher. I am more of a teacher. So I'll have questions, and feel free. I know it's divine service, but respond. When I say strategic, where am I headed? What am I saying? Have I lost you? Huh? There are some strategic decisions. Let's move on quickly. Another word they say is maybe long term. When you get into business, you'll even hear things like high level. Yani, these are decisions which when you make, they affect not just now, long term. So if you're a business person, you're making a decision for the next year and the next year and the next year. It's something that will have a ripple effect. Strategic, not short term. And normally the people who make these decisions are the owners of the business, the bosses. The managers unapewa decisions ya kesho, na kuna wale wanafanya decisions ya 3 months. But there's someone who's forecasting, looking ahead. And you're making certain decisions. You will start doing that for yourself. You're the boss. You're the boss of your life. You will start doing that for yourself now that you're in this space, in college, and as you leave. Some of them are small decisions. Others require some thought, some deep study, some prayer. Tuko pamoja? Give me one example, so then I know we are together. An example of a decision we might have to make. It is a long-term, we call it strategic decision for your life. Give me an example. Example. Career path. Career path. You know, lakini nyi wa Gen Z seriously in your careers. You hope and change and hope and change, but things are changing. Things are changing. But before you make a decision, you're sitting there for some time. Another example. There's one I'm looking for. I hope someone will say it. Marriage. That's the one I was looking for. The choice of a partner. That one is a strategic decision. You see, kuamkia. You don't just wake up. Why? Why don't you just say today, ule. Namfeel. That one you don't make a decision like that, sindio? Because it affects what? It affects your life in this world and the world to come. From a Adventist home. Yes. It affects many things. Many things. Yeah. For some of you, it will even affect what you will eat for the rest of your life. But are you understanding? So that's how do you get into that? See, a lot of prayer, a lot of thought. Maybe you've talked to people, you know. It is that kind of a decision. So, what about choosing where you will live? The choice of a home, the choice of a dwelling place. Does that fall in that category of strategic decision? It does, eh? Yeah. We live in a very different world now. Migration, people move very easily. Very easily. It's easier to move. There's a huge migration, especially from different parts of the nation to the different cities, or to the world, to different countries, you know, people moving. But that choice you make about where you're going to live, pale unaishi, you do your business, not necessarily financial business, it could be, but where you live, where you lay your head, is also not a decision to just jump into. It's not a decision to just jump into. And you're hearing about this at the right time. Because you're at the point where now you'll be figuring these things out, yeah? Trying to figure out where do I go, where do I stay, this, like that. Yeah? And I'm sure for Professor and for others, the life ahead is not always straight. So we are forecasting, but some things may go differently from your plan. Either way, it is not something to take lightly. Tumeelewana hapo? Okay. So, what considerations do we make? What considerations do we make when we are deciding where to live? What do we consider? If I asked you what you consider when you're deciding which job, I think the first thing you tell me is mshahara. No. Yeah. When you're deciding where to live, what considerations do you make? Is your mind there? Are you considering? Maybe you have a list. Yes. Now, I like to use Bible examples. When you have any question in your life, you'll be making many decisions. When you have any question, this book here has all the answers. It has all the answers. So we go there and see if we can learn. There are many. 2 Corinthians, I think 10 says, these things were written for and examples. Yeah? There are many examples which we can learn about choosing a dwelling place. So we will get an example from Lot. Remember Lot? Okay. I am going to assume you know this story, so I'm going to go very quickly past this. young man Lot was with his older uncle Abraham. And they were traveling. They had left Ur. They had left their home. They had left their home, and they had wealth. Lots of goats, lots of sheep, lots of animals. To a point where I'm not sure if they were in the journey of living. Abraham had been asked to go to a country where I'll show you, and Lot followed. I don't know if the animals increased as they were going or what happened, but at some point, both of them had too much that they could not be together. There was strife. Walikuwa na korogana. Let's read, I think it's 13, Genesis 13. There is a point where now Abraham tells Lot, yes, verse 7. Genesis 13, verse 7. Now Abraham tells Lot, let's start from verse 6. And the land was not able to bear them, that they might dwell together, for their substance was great. They were wealthy men, so that they could not dwell together. And there, verse 7, was a strife between the herdmen, Abraham's cattle, and then now verse 8. And Abraham said unto Lot, let there be no strife, I pray thee, between me and thee, and between my herdmen and thy herdmen. Abraham gave his nephew a choice. You look where we are, a lot of land. You decide to go left, I will go right. If you decide to go right, I will go left. Now, I want us to look at the choice Lot made. So we are going to keenly look at this verse. I know you know it, but we're going to keenly look at the verse 10. And Lot lifted up his eyes and beheld all the plain of Jordan, that it was what? It was well watered. Where? Everywhere. There was no rough patch anywhere. Before the Lord destroyed Sodom and Gomorrah, that was the state of the plain of Jordan. Even as the garden of the Lord. That place looked like the garden of the Lord. Which garden is he talking about? That place must have looked, it looked like the Garden of Eden. It looked like Kissy. So what did Lord do? Verse 11. Lord chose him all the plain of Jordan. Yani aliona, question, what do you think he saw? We are told, but what do you think he saw? Now in our language, what do you think he saw? You are a young college person about to leave university. What do you think you're being shown? What did he see? Prosperity. He saw, that place, he saw here. What kind of prosperity? Material. Remember, he had herds. He was a herdsman. This place was well watered everywhere, like the garden of God. He saw his animals doubling, tripling over there, because there was none that's going to get sick, none without water, none without food. He was just going to, it was going to be well with him. That's what he saw. He saw prosperity. He saw prosperity. Now, what else did he consider? What else probably did he consider? There's one thing. Market, yes. Imagine these guys had been journeying. Now this is the challenge. This is why next time we are having country, live in Sabbath, we will be in the countryside. So I can show you. You see those cows? They have come from that hill to reach to this hill to look for pasture. Lot will have no problems like that. Moving from where to where? The whole place well watered. It will be easy to take care of these animals. Is convenience. things are just nice. No walking long and hard, no doing difficult things. Things were going to be easy. Who would have liked to live in a place like that? Wacheni uongo. Yani, well watered and things are nice and easy. Isn't that a bit? Yeah. Hey, now who wants difficulty? Who wants difficulty? Okay. But there's something that is mentioned. Why? There's something that is mentioned. Sorry. I'm not being able to see. I should have done this earlier. I think it is. Yes, verse 13. Verse 13. Okay, so in verse 10, we get a glimpse of what he's saying in verse 13. In verse 10, there's a small detail. Did you get the detail? So before it was well watered everywhere, it looked like the garden of God. Before what? Before Sodom and Gomorrah were destroyed. He was looking at the plains of Jordan. But right there next to the plains of Jordan, there was Sodom and Gomorrah. Now the detail we are getting from the Bible is that after Sodom and Gomorrah was destroyed, that plain did not look the same anymore. But before, it was very, very beautiful. So there was a place there called Sodom and what? Sodom and Gomorrah. Verse 13. But the men of Sodom were what? And what? Before the Lord exceedingly. Is that a detail Lot knew? Before he chose the whole plain of Jordan. Huh? Verse 12. Abraham dwelled in the land of Canaan, and Lot dwelled in the cities of the plain, and pitched his tent towards Sodom. So, in 13, we are being further explained what Sodom was. It was a wicked city with sinners. This is a point of detail that Lot knew. He knew it very well. Remember, he's coming from Ur. He's coming from a place of idolatry. That's why Abraham was moved from there, was separated. Get out. So he's aware of what God would like and what God is not about. He understands at least the difference. And as they were looking at that plain, where he was choosing, that city was in sight. That city was in sight. And I'm sure they had lived around there long enough to know that that city was wicked. Yes. Did he consider that in his choice? So, verse 14, if you continue, verse 14, 12, verse 14, 12, we learn that he pitched his tent outside of Sodom, but in verse 14, this is the time when Sodom and Gomorrah were being ambushed. Verse 11 says, and they took all the goods of Sodom and Gomorrah and all the victuals and went their way, and they took Lot, Abraham's brother's son, who did what? Who? He had pitched his tent outside. He had pitched his tent outside, but now he moved. He was now inside of Sodom. He had pitched his tent outside. If he didn't know that Sodom and Gomorrah is a wicked city, while he was outside there, he would have clearly seen it's a wicked city and said, too wicked. If he regarded the fact that, if that was a consideration in his choice, but Lot disregarded it. Sawa. So, number 1, he considered prosperity. And number 2, he disregarded the fact that that city had perils to his soul. We know the end. Fatal steps. We know what happened. He overlooked the wickedness, and the wickedness became, by the time Sodom and Gomorrah was being destroyed, he was the only one who came out of it whole. Limping. Let me say limping. I say the only one because he did live with his family, 2 daughters and 1 wife. What happened to Lot's wife? She was in between. She was torn. So she was destroyed because she still wanted to stay within the city. What happened to the 2 daughters? Do we know what happened to the 2 daughters? The 2 daughters went with him, but in the next chapter we find that the 2 daughters, Sodom had, even they were removed from Sodom, but the Sodom could not have been removed from them. Just the fact that they had come out of Sodom did not remove the wickedness that they had learned in Sodom, to a point where they, committed incest with their father, and they both had children. One, the Amorites, and the other one, Moabites. So Lot, what he got out of all that, his decision, was the Amorites and the Moabites, who at that point, their iniquity, even them, they were destroyed. So he came out alone, but limping. The experience of Lot serves as a powerful warning for those making choices today. Few individuals, now I'm reading from Ellen White, realize the critical importance of shunning as much as possible all associations that are unfriendly to religious life. So that wicked city, today, our cities are our cities wicked? Are our cities wicked? There's this gadget called a phone. There's a gadget called a phone. Even that phone, if you take it to the country, very wicked things will go with you. Technology, advancement, I'm saying it in quotes, has made evil look so nice. But it is still evil and it is still sin. The cause that brought God's judgment upon Sodom. Do we know what that is? I think that's in Ezekiel 16:49. I'll just say it quickly. Pride, fullness of bread, abundance of idleness, and the lack of strengthening the hand of the poor. Do we see that in the cities now? Yes. The cities have perils. There are dangers within the cities. City life in itself, maybe you can describe for me. How many of you here are from the village? Me, I'm from the village. I have accepted now. Mimi ni mtu wa shambani. Professor here is from Mashambani. How many are we? Villagers. We are many. Very nice. So so we can see the contrast. When you come to the city, for me, there's one thing that I grew up in the city. I grew up in the city all my life up to when I met my dear husband, and we had this idea of moving to the country at age 30-something. So we are adults. It's when we are making the switch. After living in the city in the countryside for a few, I remember being in Nairobi last year, and I'm going about my business in the supermarket, but the people behind me think I'm very slow. Hey, things in the city are so like this. There's rush, there's sijui mnaenda wapi. Haraka, things are just rushed, things are moving. The pace in the city is different. City life is very different from country life. Village life. City priorities are different. In the village, si tunaombea mvua sana sana kwa sababu tumepanda. We are praying more. My husband prays now more than ever. He prays, is our prayer warrior in the house. And we pray for rain. Every day we are praying for rain. Our priorities are different. When you're living in the village, see, priorities are different. Am I speaking, is it true? What contrast do you see? Yani different. City life has its conveniences. Convenience, iko. You want something? Hapo. Umesahau kiberiti? Kimbia. Hapo. Chumvi. I'm talking about the things I need in the kitchen. Yeah, it works. But things are convenient. Village life, a bit hard. A little bit. But it makes us strong. It's fine. Are you seeing the differences? So when you're making that choice, why we are saying it's strategic is because that choice changes many aspects of your life. City life is different. And it has its very great dangers. So you've seen what happened with Lot. Country life is also very different. And it has its wonderful benefits. Wonderful benefits. So, I'm here to discuss the call to live and be comfortable with a more simple life. I'm here to challenge you to think about separating yourself, your ideas, your ambitions to be more God-like. And when you notice that, when you start, we've been singing the whole morning about heaven and how a wonderful place that place is. Preparation for heaven is what we want. We want to be prepared to go to that heavenly home, isn't it? This world is not our home. What will prepare us? So this decision that we're making, it's affecting many things. What will prepare me? What should I consider? I will not disregard, like Lot did, the dangers in the city, the perils in the city. I will not disregard those. That's one. And I will consider more, how do I put this? My spiritual development, my character development. Is this place I live, will it help me in building my spiritual, my faith? Right? Or is everything that is surrounding me pushing me an opposite direction? Are you seeing the things that we're considering? Okay. Sawa. Now, I'll skip some things. So, there's one last thing there. We learned that Sodom and Gomorrah eventually was destroyed. It was destroyed because, if we know the story, the iniquity that was found in that city was full. God said, enough is enough. And that is the truth then and the truth now. God's judgments are imminent. Yani zinakuja. Zilikuja, tunaona vile zikuja, na zingine zitakuja. When he says enough is enough, it is enough. And when you're in the space where iniquity abounds, and then the judgment comes and that's where you are, chances are you will be destroyed with the iniquity. So let us also keep that in consideration. Oh, I'm going the wrong way. Are we together? I want to switch a little bit now. Now, I want us to have now a deeper understanding of this call. When we are being called out, I want us to understand it just a little bit. I don't know who's helping me with time, but someone should signal me when I'm going too long. Now that we understand the strategic importance of the choice of a home and its consequences for eternity, it will be important to take time to understand the call to leave the cities. I don't know, it's not on my slide, but I'll read it. More and more, as time advances, our people will have to leave the cities. For years, we have been instructed that our brethren and sisters, and especially families with children, should plan to leave the cities as the way opens before them to do so. I am reading, this one is also in the last day events, but selected messages to page 360, paragraph 2. Many will have to labor earnestly to help open the way, but until it is possible for them to leave, so long as they remain, they should be most active in doing missionary work, however limited their sphere of influence may be. That quote, I like the ending because it's saying that we should leave the city, but if you're not out yet, your mind should be out. Melewa, is it possible? You're in the city, probably you're not able to, but is your mind there? Your mind should be out. Your mind should not be comfortable with the evils and the perils and the city life that is detrimental to your spiritual soul. Umelewa yo? Your mind can be out. So how do you do that? Through the work you've been talking about here. When you start working and doing mission work, and you go tell others about Jesus is coming again, it reminds you, it keeps your mind focused on your spiritual prosperity, not just material prosperity. Now this is a quote, I don't know if you can read it, that I want us to hone into and just discuss for a minute. The time is not far distant when, like the early disciples, we shall be forced to seek a refuge in desolate and solitary places. As the siege of Jerusalem by the Roman armies was a signal for flight to the Judean Christians, so the assumption of power on the part of our nation in the decree enforcing the papal Sabbath will be a warning to us. It will then be time to leave the large cities, preparatory to leaving the smaller ones for retired homes in secluded places. This was written first in 1885. And note her language, it will then be time to leave. So the imminence, yani zaidi na kizungu ama ni Kiswahili. The urgency to leave before then was not there. But something happened because it says it will then be time. And then if you read more of the councils, especially from 1900s going on, she says, leave the cities, leave them. So what happened? Because at this time she's saying it will then be time. So what happened? So let's interrogate that for now. Matthew 24, she's referring to Matthew 24. I am quoting from, can you see that is Testimonies 5, 464, paragraph 3, for those who are writing. Testimonies 5, 464. Now we're going to go to Matthew 24. Matthew 24, here Christ is giving wonderful warnings. He's giving wonderful warnings. A warning is a good thing because it's helping you to prepare. He's warning the disciples. Verse 15, when ye therefore shall see the abomination of desolation spoken of by Daniel the prophet stand in the holy place, whosoever readeth, let him understand. Then let them which be in Judea flee into the mountains. Open Luke 21. Luke 21. Luke 21 is the same verse, but now written with a slightly different language that helps us understand what is the abomination, desolation. Luke 21, verse 21. Then let them which are in Judea, 20. And when you shall see Jerusalem compassed with armies, then know that the desolation thereof is nigh. So the desolation spoken about in Daniel is that one, which is the armies have compassed what? Jerusalem. And when that happens, what does Jesus tell them to do? He tells them, then let them which are in Judea flee to the mountains, and let them which are in the midst of it depart, and let them that are in the countries enter thereinto. That was a very clear warning. What was Jesus talking about? What was Jesus talking about? Jerusalem in AD 66 was compassed by the Roman armies. Do we know this story? We do. So I can quickly run up. It was compassed around. So that's a tactic of war. The city, people are inside the city, so the enemy comes, compasses you around. You can't leave. You can't go for food. You can't go for water. You can't go for anything. So after a while, you will finish your supplies, you will starve, and then they can come in and get you. Sour. So that is a tactic. That's what they did. So they compassed. So the point was to destroy Jerusalem. But something happened in AD 66. And the Roman armies, it was led by Cestius Gallus. He withdrew. He left. They were around Jerusalem. Him and his men, kila mtu, horses, nini, gone. They had another priority. Jerusalem not at that time. They left. What did Jesus say in Luke? When you shall see Jerusalem compassed with armies, then know that the desolation thereof is nigh. When they were compassing, the desolation was very close. Then let them which are in Judea flee to the mountains. God is, he's a wonderful provider. Even when he told the Israelites, when you go to Canaan to possess your inheritance, they were not in Canaan. They had to fight to get into it. But he had told them in their minds, that place is your inheritance. What is your inheritance? Your inheritance is yours. Yani, it is already given to you. Here he's saying, they will compass, you will flee. So the Christians only trusted, they will compass and we will flee. How? They didn't know. So they were keen and they were watching. And as soon as the withdrawal happened, I'm sure they're the ones who are watching, and they notice these people are gone. They were gone. They were gone. And we are told in great controversy, not one Christian perished in the destruction of Jerusalem. Christ had given his disciples warning, and all who believed his words watched for the promised sign. They watched. They were told, this is the sign, but now you can't move. They're all over. But once there was a retreat, they left. God's providence, ndio? Amen. They were preserved from the destruction. What happened? AD 70, how many years later? It was not even 2 weeks later. I thought about it. It was not 2 weeks later. It was years later. So you've gone to the mountains where it is hard. Everything in the city is convenient. Things are going on well in the city. You guys are in the mountains. You're watching the city. It is not being destroyed. But God warned us that it's going to be destroyed. Year 1. Year 2. AD 66 to AD 70. How many years are those? Year 3. You might have been in the mountains. You say, this thing, we can go back. We go back and get. So, you see how tuna. But those who are faithful, they trusted, and God took care of them where they were. They were fine and they were not destroyed. We know the armies came back and did what? They destroyed Jerusalem. They destroyed Jerusalem. These Christians who were preserved in the mountains and were not destroyed, that was the early church. That was the early church. So if they wavered, the early church that had the truth of Christ, that went to the whole world, if they wavered, they would have been destroyed in Jerusalem. No, God would not have let that happen. And God knew he had a people he had his people. He knew he had his people. All he needed to do is tell them. And he knew they would listen. And they would follow. Umeelewa? Now let's go back to our quote. What does this have to do with us? The siege. How does this siege of old Jerusalem relate to us today? So the quote says, as the siege of Jerusalem by the Roman armies was a signal for flight to the Judean Christians, so the assumption of power on the part of our nation in decree enforcing the papal Sabbath will be a warning to us. When she says our nation, she means the United States of America, which is the nation she belonged to, our nation. The assumption of power on the part of the United States of America in the decree of enforcing the papal Sabbath. That will be the warning. That will be our signal. That will be the compass. And now we look for a way to flee. Are we together? That happened also. The United States set out a decree to enforce the papal Sabbath. When did this happen? Bible students. You guys are Bible students. I know you know this. History students. Okay. So maybe this is new. Let's start now, pole, so that we don't lose anybody. So so that we don't lose anybody, let's go back a bit. We know that the Lamb, Revelation 13. Revelation 13, if you go there, Revelation 13:11, we know the lamb-like beast. We know that is the United States. Tuko hapo pamoja, at least we know that, yeah? It is the United States. We know from Revelation that it will pass a decree in honor of the leopard-like beast. Revelation 13:2. That honor, that decree that will honor the papal Sabbath, that is the enforcement of the first day as the holy day, the Sabbath day. Yani, in other words, Sunday law. Si mumesikia Sunday law? Yes, there was a Sunday law. There was a bill for the Sunday law, and it almost passed. This bill was brought to Congress by Senator Blair. called the Blair Law in 1888. And it was a very popular law, and it had a lot of support. But then it also had some people who, especially the Adventist Sabbath keepers, there were Baptist Sabbaths, and then there were the Seventh-day Baptists, and then the Seventh-day Adventists who went out and said no, this, and they opposed it. But that law almost passed. I think my husband might discuss the last day events. And we know after the Sunday law, according to prophecy, what happens? I think this probation ends and then the Sunday law. And then what do we expect? What have we been told according to prophecy? The plagues, isn't it? The plagues start falling. But what is the end? Christ is coming. Christ is coming. Christ is coming. So they were looking at that time when things are looking like Jesus is coming again. Now that law did not pass. That law did not pass. It did not get sufficient votes to go into the Congress to be voted. So it stayed in the committee stage, if you know how to, that makes sense. It didn't pass. Do you see a similarity with Matthew 24? With the warning given? The warning of Jerusalem being destroyed. Do you see the similarity? You see the parallel? So for us today, according to this, the quote says now that once that Sunday law was attempted, it showed that it was an assumption of power. What was left, there was no Sunday law, but what was left are what you call now state blue laws, which are in fact right now. Different states in the United States enforce that Sunday is the Sabbath day. And enforcing means that shops are closed, you're not allowed to do certain activities on that day, and that law it's a religious law to enforce religious activities. So there are certain states in the United States right now that is their way of life, and it has always been like that since 1888. And if you do a little more research, you'll find even countries, nations in Europe, there are nations in Europe you can't shop on Sunday. I used to think that, but there are, and it's not one, two. In Switzerland, in Geneva, a big multinational cosmopolitan city, Sunday, everything is closed. Everything, you can't shop. So Adventists there, if you don't do your shopping on Friday, on Friday, there's no Sunday. You know how here Sunday is your day. Kwenda market, sijui kufanya nini. There's no Sunday there to do those things. Sunday is shut. And there are many countries in Europe that is happening. Why is this relevant for us today? I believe today we are nearing, we are edging and edging and edging closer and closer to the real Sunday law. to the real one. Yani, to the one where now Jesus will come. And the reason I'm emphasizing this is, when that Sunday law passes, that will not be the time to move to the countryside. That's not the one Jesus is talking about, flee. That will not be. That will be too late. Because what happens there in quick succession is the plagues and the problems. Oh, we've been told. Prophecy sessions, I'm sure you've had them here. Times of trouble like never. The time to live was when? Since 1888, going on up to now, this is the time. When things are peaceful. When you can go and seek a place. When you can actually go and set up. And you're setting up because people will leave the city. The times of trouble are coming, and they'll want to come and they need a place to stay. This is the time. Why is it relevant for you? Because you are now setting yourselves up. You are moving now to the next phase. After college, you're moving up to the next phase of adulthood, where certain considerations have to be made. The thought that, Jesus is coming again. He's coming for me. I would like him to find me prepared. And not just me. I have also helped others understand. We have a work to do. Christ is coming. Christ is coming. So. Time, please. I can keep going. The experience of Lot and the early Christians, they serve as powerful warnings, underpinning the instruction given today. I'm urging, separate. We need to separate from corruption before the final great calamities fall. Separation is two-way. There is a physical separation. We'll discuss a lot about that in the afternoon. There's a physical, literally, many of you who live in the village means maybe not setting up back in that village and elevating that village and helping people to understand Christ is coming soon. There is that one. There is this spiritual separation. Kuna vile our ambitions and our desires and our wishes and they're all kind of intertwined with what the world has shown us, those well-watered plains. And things look so promising and kuna vile we are intertwined. Ni kweli ama ni wrong? Ni kweli? Yeah, kuna vile. I remember when I wanted, side story, but very quick. I wanted to homeschool my son. He was 3. That's the time when now we start taking our children to kindergarten. At the time, I was not a converted Christian. I was not an SDA. Really, I was married to my husband who kept nudging me. We go to church, and we went to church. But that was it. So when I brought him this idea, he said, no. What is this? Children saying at home to do what? They're supposed to be in school. So it didn't make sense. So, but he was now slowly getting back to church and understanding the principles of Christian life. And in his mind, he thought, if you only can convince me that the Bible supports this, that this is biblical in some extent, then maybe we can talk. But unless I can't see that, we are not doing it. And so I took my son to school for 1 year in kindergarten. And I started, this is how, one of the reasons why now this is my first Bible. I got it like 5, 6, 8 years ago to search and find an answer for my husband. Because in my head, I was going to homeschool my son. But the reasons why were so off. Okay, now I know they're off, but they were off. They were completely intertwined with my own ambitions of worldly prosperity. I was going to train this guy to be a corporate top leader. We were going to do some serious training in that house so that he has the skills to be in the world, whatever business. The point was for him to be a successful citizen. Yeah. It had no spiritual consideration at all. And as I started reading, I realized if I don't change, I will raise. He is a very smart boy. I will raise a smart boy who is very arrogant, who doesn't care. And who wants to work with somebody like that? Serious. Even if he owns the world. So our ambitions, there's a way they are intertwined with the glorious things that the world has promise or can promise. You see what Lot saw? When he saw with his eyes, his mind saw many other things. So the separation that we're talking about is to start separating ourselves. But you can't separate yourselves unless you have something that is telling you which way to go. It is in the search of the scriptures and understanding how am I supposed to live? Where am I supposed to eat from? I'm glad you had a health reform week. How am I supposed to conduct my affairs? How am I supposed to do my business? When you start thinking about that, then you see, hey, my ambitions and my wishes and where I wanted to go, they are different from what is being written here. Then you start accepting what the Bible is saying and slowly what? Separating. It is a process, but it is a wonderful thing. The song you sang, it is wonderful. It is marvelous. What Jesus has done in my soul, half of it you will not know. By the time you are done with that process, you will be singing that song, because the things he will do, the way he will change your mind to see what is important, that Christ is coming, and your character is not quite right. Your weaknesses here and there. And then plus on top of that, you have your whole family and your neighbor and this one who need to come and understand the truth. By the time he starts showing you all those things, your heart will be completely changed.